welcome to the Coffee and Collaborations podcast, yet another episode. I am your host, Kimberly Winborn. My company is Kimberly Winborn, LLC, and Coffee and Collaborations Media is a component of Kimberly Winborn, LLC. I'm happy to be here today with my co-host.
I am the co-host, Al the Great. I am CEO of Good Steward Apparel and lead designer of Good Steward Apparel brands. And we are really excited about our guests who we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yes, I want to tell you all, okay, so if you've been tuning in, which I hope you have, last month we had women all month long. We were celebrating women who are powerful moms, entrepreneurs, inspirations in the community. Well, June, of course, we celebrate another big day, Father's Day, right? And so we want to do the same thing for the fellas. We want to celebrate men who are out here being amazing fathers, entrepreneurs, leaders in the community. And so we are excited to launch this series of powerful men in collaboration for the month of June. Al is going to tell you in just a moment about our amazing guests that we have today. But I want to tell you really quickly before we move forward about Coffee and Collaborations. And it's just going to take me just a moment. If this is your first time tuning in, Coffee and Collaborations is about building relationships in order to create collaborations, because by working together, we can create a powerful blow in the community and do more. So it's about collaboration over competition. That's what this is. Each episode we focus on. And that's why you hear the word collaboration out of my mouth thousands of times, because it's so significant for us to get that. And so I'm in collaboration with my amazing co-host, and then we brought on another amazing collaborator today as our special guest. So go ahead on, Al, tell us a little bit about, and hello, Maurice, welcome to the Coffee and Collaborations podcast.
Hey, everybody.
So like Kimberly said, we are highlighting amazing entrepreneurs and fathers this month, and we thought it would only be fitting to start off with Maurice. Maurice Webb is owner of Precision Striping. He's the founder of 21 Century Fatherhood. He's a minister, a speaker, and now a new author. We wanted to start off with him because he's doing a lot of amazing work for fathers, and he's a huge advocate for fathers. So he would be the perfect guest to have on just to start off our month of fatherhood. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Maurice, that I didn't tell already.
Well, thank you guys for having me on, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about fatherhood. It's definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I do believe that being a father is one of the best things that has ever happened to me. It literally changed my life. I have 3 girls, twins. My first children in this world were twins. God it's funny like that, right?
Yeah.
And I had twins with no job, just moved to North Carolina, no friends, was trying to figure out my life, and had been married for a couple of years. And it was the best of times and the worst of times all together. And the number one question I get all the time is, what made me start a business doing striping? When I was 15 years old, growing up in the city of Detroit, a friend of mine actually introduced me to a guy that he knew who was doing that type of work. And he needed some help one day. And I was just supposed to come in and be like a kind of a day labor type of person. But I liked it so much that I really wanted to impress the guy. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, tell that one guy to come back next week. I need him to help you to do something. And I just kept getting invited back. And then eventually he was like, would you like a job? And I said, of course. And what attracted that type of work to me was all my friends were working at McDonald's and the kind of typical jobs. And I was doing something that I felt was like real cool. It was real kind of, had a mystique to it. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I always said if I ever was going to start a business, I was going to start a striping company. And I spoke that so much that literally it was like all over me. And I literally would search on Craigslist night and day for a striping machine. And my first striping machine that I ever bought, I paid $500 for it. Um, uh, that was the machine that he had taught me on, and it was
Wow.
one available. So I knew exactly how to use the machine. So going to pick the machine up, this guy lived in Virginia, and I had this little Lexus ES 300. Now you might remember that little black car I had.
I
Maybe not.
do. Yeah.
Okay, it had a hitch on it. So I went to U-Haul, rented a little trailer, and drove to Virginia, Danville, Virginia, with $500 in my pocket. It was the last $500 I had in the savings account. But I believed in this business so much that I was like, I'm gonna make it back. So I take the ride up this road, and the guy pulls the machine out and doesn't start. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to buy a lemon.
Right.
And he sells me the machine. I take it to this mechanic here locally, and literally the only thing that was wrong with it was the carburetor, and it was dust in it. And that's how I started my company, with one little machine. And yeah, that's how I got started.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
such a great story.
yeah, yeah,
Mystery, intrigue.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you mentioned that you and your wife you kind of work together with precision striping.
Right,
So that is a unique experience for, a lot of married couples can't do it.
Yeah.
You have home life and then you have work life, and that would be rough for a lot of married couples.
yeah.
So how has that collaboration just helped with your business, precision striping, and any other collaborations that have had help with the success of precision striping?
Well, it was tough. It's tough and easy all at the same time, because when we're working in our gifts, we are very effective. It's when we start stepping on each other's toes where, I'm trying to do something that she usually does, or she's trying to do something that I usually do, and that's where we've gotten more refined. But I actually had to recruit into the business, because she was always kind of around the business, but she wasn't really working in the business. She would kind of
Mm.
give me some advice on things, but I felt like, with her talents and gifts and where she was in her career, I was like, I could do better for you than that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she where she was working, I just was like, we can do better, and I believed it. I didn't have the money. One thing about me is I don't really I don't get intimidated by not having the resources to get started. I just keep doing stuff, and then things kind of work themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her I was going to replace her salary. So she made a deal with me. She said, if you replace my salary for 6 months, and health insurance, I think that was one of the things that she was part of the deal, health insurance. But I wanted to make sure that my kids had access to their mom, because I have girls. And so I wanted to take away any barriers for her being a mom. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I'll take care of providing. I'll figure it out. And that's kind of the old fashioned, granddad took care of home, mom stayed at home with the kids kind of thing. I'm a little old fashioned like that. I mean, she can work if she wants to, right? Don't get me wrong. But that was the real start of it. But I think the main thing is just to build a family business.
Yeah.
I really believe that, a family business is just a great way to go.
Yeah.
And I've had my issues with jobs and things like that, to where I'm like, I'm just all in now on what I'm doing, and that's paid off for the most part. Um, so
Yeah.
that was my motivation. It's really just for my girls to have access to their mom, for their mom to be available. We have 3 girls, and Kinsley's 2 now, and I just felt like that was important. So
Yeah.
that motivates me to work hard.
Yeah. I love that. I love your story. I love your passion for your family and legacy. What you're gonna leave, what is gonna trickle down to your girls, to the community, and what just that whole family structure. I absolutely love that. And you mentioned that, maybe that's old fashioned, some of the ways that you think. But I believe that it, people call things old fashioned that are absolutely necessary still, though. What works for one family structure may not work for another, right? But what
Right.
worked for your family was able to bring her and bring her home and you guys have that legacy that you want to design for your life, which I think is significant. So many of us don't even imagine living our lives based on what we want, really, truly want and dream for. And we just do the day to day and what everybody else is doing, but that's a part of what keeps people hustling, and hustling in a good way, not like tiring yourself out. But to your point of being able to replace her income in a month, there was a passion there and a purpose that you were driven by something that you designed and defined
Yeah.
that you all wanted for your family structure. And so I love that. That's how I coach. That's how I mentor and teach people. Like you gotta have a goal. You gotta define what you want and then go out and design it, create those opportunities and do it. And I think about how you said it related to even the whole fatherhood movement. Well, you have a structure that many people never get to experience. Many of us did not have a father and a mother at home. And if we did, we didn't have a father and a mother that had a business that they were working together. It's so many different dynamics that you guys have that are a great example. And I want to hear a little bit more about the fatherhood. 21st Century Father, did I get that correct?
21st Century Fatherhood, yes.
Yes. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that? I would love to hear that.
Well, it is drawn from a deep broken place with my own father, right? My father was an alcoholic. My father's still alive, by the way. My mother's deceased. And I grew up watching my mother and father, who were together for 32 years, but he never married my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been married twice. And I watched him kind of really not treat her like the woman and queen that she should have been treated like. So I was angry. And most boys, there's a raging anger that is built up when they see their mother mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that. But I also had Jesus Christ in my life. So I was really stuck between trying to forgive him and deal with this anger. And it caused me to really be a isolated kid. I was, I just didn't have anyone kind of helping me to bring that out of me until I turned 16.
Mm-hmm.
When I turned 16, I started playing football. That was a way to channel that anger, channel that frustration. I was around older men, coaches, and it was my first experience with really seeing that you can break through this. Well, through that experience, I started dating girls. And then they would see this anger in me. They were like, you're just a nice guy, but you got this place in you that is really isolated. So that was the first time I really started to see that, wow, other people can see something that's in me and not always positive. Because I was the funny guy. I was the guy, I was voted class clown in 8th grade and 12th grade. I'm real proud about that. And I was always using jokes to keep the attention off of me, which most kids do. And I was very insecure. My teeth was crooked. I mean, I just, I've struggled with my weight over the years. I just had all these insecurities. So I was social, but I was like, but you couldn't get close to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would always keep myself isolated. And I realized that I was dealing with something that was related to my father. And when I got older, I started to try to talk to him. My father is the type of person that he's real old school, right? You don't just sit down and have a heart to heart with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna redirect the conversation. And it would just always be one thing or another. Well, I ended up going into foster care, and that really changed my life because instead of going back home when I had the opportunity, I just kind of hit the road, and so to speak. I stayed with my foster mom. As soon as I graduated from high school, I immediately enrolled in college,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started to try to expose myself to so many things. And the funny thing is that you can go halfway around the world, and you still got to come back to these broken places,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They don't leave you.
You come full circle, right? So I realized that no matter what I could do, I had to deal with this place. And it wasn't really just talking to my dad. It was really dealing with it within my own insecurities. That's when I started to say, what am I really passionate about? What am I really deeply concerned about? It was fatherhood. And the best way to help yourself is to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because you gain so much gratification. If it comes from a real genuine place, you gain a lot of gratification from giving out of your heart. When you give out of your heart, it brings so much fulfillment to you. And I said, I don't have a clue as to how to really help anybody else, but I need to help myself because I'm a dad and I don't want my kids to ever experience the things that I went through, right? Then I realized my wife had daddy issues, right? So she's going through her own insecurities and anger problems and so on and so forth. Then as I started to talk to friends, they were going through issues. And I said, man, if you sit down and talk to most people, you ask them what has mostly impacted their lives. A lot of times they tell you something from their childhood.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of times they'll tell you something that happened with them and a parent, particularly their dad, right? So I said, this keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. And then just being an entrepreneur, I said, I need to market this in a way that gets this message out clearly. And so 2 years ago, as part of my coaching, I started to recreate my image. I literally sat down and said, I want to change my image. And in changing my image, I know that other men are going to see this. And I'm hoping that they pick up just a piece of it and start to recreate their own image. Because being a man and being a father, man, what greater powerful place and position do you have? You can literally change someone's life by your presence. I mean, that's deep.
Yeah.
When a father walks in the room and his children see him, they change.
Yeah.
One way or another, both negative and positive, they change. That's just an example of the power that we have as men to not be abusive with that power, but if we use it correctly, we can really be a great influence to the people around us. So that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be an influence that was positive. And I know a lot of women who have issues with their fathers. So I wanted to be a positive voice for them and say, look, I can't change the relationship you had with your father, but at least you're going to see from me that I want to show you by taking care of my kids that somebody's doing it, trying to do it better, trying to do it correctly. And I don't get it right all the time, but I wanted to be available to my kids.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I haven't found that, Maurice, that if I go and talk to my kids quietly that they're gonna do what I said.
You gotta yell.
Well, I
gotta use some bass.
It's a technique. And
my wife would always think it was like when my kids were young, they were babies. I mean, like little babies. I would talk to them, and I would use, bass in my voice sometime and tell them not to do things. And she would always look at me crazy, like, what are you doing? Like, they don't understand what you're saying. But it carried over.
Yeah.
And there are times where I don't have to yell. I do just have to use a little bass, and they understand. Like, I was getting them used to hearing my voice and the different flexions and what it meant. And it definitely made a difference. Yeah. And I feel like the work that you're doing is really great. Yeah. Especially when, we've come through your generation and my generation, our generation, where the stereotype and the stigma was that a lot of fathers were not around. And I know that's something that I experienced, that my father wasn't around. So it made me a lot more passionate about being around for my kids and about, helping other fathers. So I definitely understand that, and definitely understand how much fathers are needed. Fathers are the ones that, mothers too, but fathers are the ones that help provide that security for kids and for the children, that they feel like they can go out there and be anything and do anything. So, you definitely have to have that piece.
Yeah.
Can I mention a few things?
Yeah.
So I go into the prisons. I'm a regular speaker over at Central Prison. I've been to Butner Prison numerous times. And I go in and I talk with these guys on a monthly basis. And what I realize is that at every level, the subject of fatherhood comes up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these men are doing hard time. And a lot of them will say they didn't have that influence.
Yeah.
Or they didn't listen, or it was they didn't have a community, they didn't have this or that. And I'm like, then we kind of cast them away sometimes because like, you've made your decision, live with the results. And I come in and I'm like, no, I'm gonna walk with you through this too. And that is what I'm really proud about now. So the work we're doing with prison reform has been phenomenal, because that gives me a very clear perspective of the consequences of not being present, right?
Yeah.
So then I said, let me take it a step further. And this has really been a 5-year in the making ordeal. With Precision Striping now, both the guys that work for me, they have felonies, right? So by society standards, they're half a citizen, right? They can't vote, they can't own a gun, and most times they can't get a job.
Yeah.
These guys work very hard for the company, right? And they have a genuine appreciation, because literally now they are learning a skill. I pay them a decent wage and I treat them like men. So I'm very proud about now being able to finally, and I've worked very hard to get to this point, and I'm really hoping that it continues for the next 3-4 decades. And that is, I go in, I talk to these guys in the prison, but then I also hire them. Like I seek out guys who nobody else want to hire. And don't get me wrong, I will fire them if they're not doing their job. But I also let them know that your story is my story. And I want you to know that somebody does care out here. I'm now really being able to, on multiple levels, say that I've been able to really have some impact. And it's very small, but I am so proud about that, because that is really the mission for me, which is, I don't want to just say something. I also want to be involved in it. I want to put my resources behind it. So this fatherhood piece now on the entrepreneur side has been kind of 2 years in the making. And now it's starting to get a little bit of traction. I'm on you guys' show. I got to do some other interviews, and we'll talk about some other resources coming. So I'm starting to see how, when you really put that time in, something that you believe in and you're passionate about, it gets people's attention. And I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, being impactful. It's about the work that you're doing being impactful, is being as impactful as you can in one lifetime. That is kind of always, it's been my motto with my company and the things that we do. How much can you do in one lifetime? How many people can you touch in one lifetime?
Yeah.
So this question, I feel like a lot of times fathers have a bad rep. We have the rep of kind of getting tunnel vision sometime. And I've been through that season of getting tunnel vision, where you're trying to build a business and you you probably put too much time on the business, and then you stray away. Not enough time with the family. So how can fathers do? How can give us some tips on how we can balance it all with having that business and family life and all these other things we have to do, versus just having that tunnel vision and being overly focused on career and business?
Well, I would say, and this is definitely, we'll talk about the resource a little bit later, but there's something that I talk about, and it's just really being trendy. And being trendy is all about being flexible, right? When you're rigid, you can miss a lot, because you are so narrow-minded that you think that the only way to get to point B is through this straight and narrow path, when you can take a circle, you can go zigzag, and there's many ways to get there. When I started, I was very rigid and narrow-minded. I thought that the only way that I could be a successful entrepreneur is living in my own head. And I thought that the best way to do that was to shut everything else out. That's an old, archaic way of thinking. We live in a world now where literally you guys are in one location and I'm in another location, but yet we're having a interaction. So there is so many new ways to get to that point B now. And I was closed off to them. This is why I had to bring my wife in, because she doesn't think like me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we're intimidated, or we shun away people who don't think like us. And that's really the type of people that we need in our life.
Yeah.
Because you are so passionate that you can become focused on it without even thinking about it. Like, you can be so narrow-minded on something. When you're so narrow-minded, you really lose. You really lose out. Like, I'll give you another example. I have a friend of mine in Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
White guy, older white guy. He does striping. He does a lot of work for me. And in return, I have we are like now business friends. We call each other all the time and talk about different strategies, different things. And he does something that I just don't do, right? He does a particular part of work that I don't do. And instead of me trying to do it myself, I'm like, let me just pay this guy to do this part, because at the end of the day, and we joke about this, I always tell him, like, I said, you're going to get paid and I'm going to get the credit. And we laugh about that because that's really the truth, because it's going to come back to me. But I'm like, I've learned now not to try to do everything myself. And it's hard when you start, because when you start, nobody knows but what's in your head. But the sooner you start to ask for help, and you have to keep asking for help. I had to ask my wife for help for years, right? But I also realized it wasn't that she didn't want to help me. She was afraid that we couldn't provide for the family. So once I realized that it wasn't even about her helping, it was about her calming these fears and doubts in her, she was completely on board. Because I took away all of those doubts. I took away all of those fears. So I would say that for anybody who's trying to collaborate or work with their significant other or bring somebody in, you have to be open to allowing that person to have a little bit of freedom in their role.
Yeah.
You cannot, you know, with the guys now, I literally give them their assignment and I purposely walk away. And I know they're going to mess something up, but what I'm trying to do is build trust with them. Because if you never build trust with them, I want to get to the point where I don't need to go with them on every job, because they know what to do.
Yeah.
But if I'm never giving them that opportunity, how can I get there? So you have to get to a place where you become more flexible, and you do that by allowing people to be themselves in that organization. And then you provide the framework. You say, here's the overall vision. Now come in and give me some of that great detail stuff that I know you can provide. And then you encourage the heck out of them. Any little thing they do right, you pump it up like never before. I mean, you got to get flyers made. You got to send out announcements. You got to tell the world, this person is helping me to build my brand.
I love
my
it.
company. That's what I was saying.
Because the goal for any business owner, and it took me a little while to find this out too. The goal for any business owner is not to trade time for money. You don't want to have to actually be there in order to make the money. So that's why you need to train somebody else up. You need to show that you have confidence in that person. So definitely understand.
Duplication.
Here's what I realized. I'm actually a better salesman than I am a better striper. But because I'm always on the equipment, not now, but because I was always on the equipment, I couldn't sell. I couldn't get in front of people.
Right.
So I realized, I said, I got to fire myself. I'm actually hurting the company. You can get to a point where you are hurting your own company. You're cutting your nose to spite your face by trying to do everything. You say, I want to grow, but you only want to grow in your head. You don't want to grow by bringing people in. I paid out to the guy I just described. I paid out almost $30,000 last year in subbing out contracts to him. Somebody might say, man, you could keep that money in-house. It wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
It was about the service and the collaboration that it provided for the company to where I could get to other things. I got sick. I could call Wayne and say, hey, Wayne, can you take care of this for me? He's going to go and he's going to do a fantastic job.
Right.
And the company doesn't miss a beat. Maybe someday I don't have to sub it out, but for right now, I use all my resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. I mean, that's the goal. You know, so many people in business hustle for so long and never get to that place. But that is the goal. If you really, truly want to have a scalable business, then you have to follow that recipe. And so this is just such a great example of scalability. Some of those things that we have to do as entrepreneurs, some of the realizations and aha moments that we have to grow, to go to the next level. I mean, we have someone here who's an entrepreneur, father, speaker, minister, and now husband. Let me backtrack. Husband.
Forget the husband, yeah.
Forgot the husband. We talked about it, but let me say it. And now author. And so tell us about your book. This is 7 Steps to Fatherhood.
Yeah. So just going back to just having so much stuff in my head.
Yeah.
You're dealing with so many people. You have so many experiences with people. I've sat on the phone for hours with some brothers. I've been a part of mentor groups where I've sat around and learned from other men. I've been to conferences, all of this great information. And then you just bring it back and you say, man, I need people to get this stuff because they're going through some of the same mistakes that I made. They're going through mistakes that can be easily fixed. What can I do to make sure that I'm getting that message out? And one of my mentors told me, he said, you got to get it on paper.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to get it down on paper. You got to write the book. You can be heavily involved in church. You can be very successful, and you can be at the top of your game in so many different areas, but you can still be a horrible father.
Yeah.
Because you don't know your kids, you don't understand what they need, and you're not focused on them. You're focused on all these other things. You know how, like, guys, Al, you can relate. You say, I'm out here hustling for the kids. I'm hustling for the fam. But you'll never see them. But you're never home. Then, you know, you can't help them with 2 + 2 on their homework assignment, right? Yeah. And so I said, I need to write something that is going to be a conversation, but it's something that you can pick this book up 20, 30 years from now and it's relevant, right? So the reason why I say 7 steps is because I like that number 7, spiritually completion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to stand out in a way that says, these are tips. These are just tips. These are just suggestions. You don't have to take this information nowhere other than the countertop. But I think that these things will help you. I think they will help you. And really the tips are about, you know, how to create a life plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you sit down and say, what is the legacy of our family, right? What do I want my kids to, what do I want to pass on to them?
Yeah.
And it should be more than money, right? Everybody's focused on, you know, money, the money piece, but just knowing the health of your family history.
Yeah.
Diabetes runs in my family. So I know I can't eat but so much birthday cake because otherwise I'm gonna be sitting around with type 2 diabetes. That's valuable information.
Yeah.
So the book is about the young boys who are getting into parenthood very early, and they just have no clue as to what to do. And it's also to the older guys who need to freshen up on their or sharpen up their skills and say, hey, look, I knew that, but I wasn't doing it. Now I got to execute it. It's a reminder. And then too, the book is also about really my journey of growing into a more mature man.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you go from point A to point B? You have to get coaches, you have to get a pastor, you have to get people in your life that can challenge you. I talk about every man should have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
Because you need somebody in your life that's going to tell you the cold hard facts. And that is, you need to grow up.
Mhm.
You need to
Really, the
mature.
accountability partner is your wife.
Yeah, you know, and
Yeah.
so that's what the book is about. It's a very easy read. I didn't mean for it to be long. I didn't put any facts and figures in there. You can get that stuff on fatherhood.gov and all those places. I just wanted to make it something that is a good reminder and conversation to the young guys, because I'm really want to speak to the young fathers, the 20 to 24, 25 age range. I've seen those guys really have the potential, but not have the skills to do what they need to do to be good dads. So, and they get a bad rep because they're young. And I wanted to speak to the people that everybody disenfranchises.
Yeah. Well,
One
I'm
of the things I
excited for
like
it.
that you said, one of the things I like that you said is that the book was for fathers. Because I don't know if you said this or maybe our pastor said it. We have the same pastor, Will Nichols. But one of the things, some people don't learn something until you actually get into it. Some things you just can't prepare for. Like
Mhm.
fatherhood, you can't prepare for fatherhood. You can try to do all these things, but you won't really be prepared, or you won't really be a good father until you're actually a father. So
Yeah.
that I think that is definitely something that fathers need.
Yeah.
You need that experience to help you get there, because you can have all the ideas in the world about how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that, but when those babies come, like
This is a whole different ballgame.
it's
I
a
mean,
whole different ball game.
my whole relationship with my wife changed after we had kids. I mean, we went from like, always having date night to, I need you to go downstairs, get that bottle. It's 2:00 in the morning. I don't feel like getting up. And I wasn't ready for that. I just
Yeah.
wasn't ready. My youngest now is 2. So it had been 8 years since we had another child. I had grown so much. I mean, I was like, bottles ready, got your watermelon ready, because I know that's what you like. I mean, I was like night and day, And she was like, you definitely changed with Kinsley. And I'm like, yeah, because I realized that I did a horrible job the first time around. I wanted to do something better. And so, but that's what I'm talking about. It's just, a lot of times is people think that it's about being this perfect image of a father. Listen, I make so many mistakes along the way, but what I realize is that you don't want to miss things that they really are looking for you to be there in.
Mhm.
Like now, I'm okay with canceling a job to be at the kids' track, their little, something they got going on at school, because I'm like, I may never get that opportunity again. I may die tomorrow.
You won't get that opportunity again, because
Right.
that's not going to be that track meet. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you know what? I'm all right with letting something wait so I can
Yeah.
be involved. And so
Priorities.
yeah. Now, am I going to be there every time? No, because like tomorrow they're going to do some activity, and I'm like, listen, I got to work, but I'm like, I was there at the last 5, so I put in my time. So
Yeah.
it's not always being like trying to have this perfect attendance, but it's just trying to do your best. Just give
Right.
your best effort. And I
It's about the
promise you,
quality. It's about the quality of the time.
Little Wayne's daughter said this, and I thought it was so profound. She said, my father always was trying to give me money, and all I wanted was his time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I just draw the line and say, you know what? I'm just going to try to be here today. I'm just trying to try to be involved today. Tomorrow, hey, I might drop the ball tomorrow, but I hope y'all know I love y'all.
Yeah. I love
I
it.
think one of the important things you said, and I know we got to end, but one of the important things that I learned as a father, and what you were talking about, is especially as an entrepreneur. I've seen all these successful people, like you mentioned, Little Wayne. I've seen these successful people build these amazing empires, and their kids want nothing to do with it.
Right.
Is how much is what you're building worth if your kids, if they don't like it because they didn't get your time. You spent
Right.
all your time on building that empire, building that business, and they want nothing to do with it because all they wanted was your time. So
Right.
you do have to find that balance. And I, myself, I had to find that balance, because I said I was doing all this for my kids. I'm building this empire for my kids, but it doesn't mean anything if they, they don't get that time with me and they don't even care about what I'm building.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that the solution to that is to stop being busy and be more focused. Because you could be at home and still not be present.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could be in another room,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But when you start to realize that if I focus on one thing and just focus on that one thing well, it will open the doors for other things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's significant. And that's what I was going to say. I read this book. It's called Essentialism. And it's about
I was just about to mention that because when you said that, I went ahead and bought it. I'm actually reading it right now, and I was going to say that's one of the things I've learned from that. Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend it across the board. It's a book that I tell people to get all the time, but it's the idea, the discipline that less is more. And so it's about managing priorities. Like what are those essentials that you must have in life, and then focusing in and managing those. And I think, that's what parenting, whether mother, father, that's what parenting is about, and why so many people do have various levels of traumas. One of them is time management, because their father or their mother was absent. And I was going to make a point earlier about security. Al had brought that up. As a woman who did not have a father present in the home, that is one of the things that is major for me. Security. That's one of the things that I always talk about at the very beginning of any relationship that was going to get serious that I was ever in. Security is important to me. As soon as I don't feel secure, I'm out. That's me. And that's me. I know that about me, but that is why. And that was a journey to get to there. And so it is significant. Like all the things you're saying about you guys are talking about with fatherhood, with showing up, with priority management, with all of these things. It goes down to what legacy do we want to leave, for our children? How do we want them to be able to show up in this world? And what are we willing to do, putting ourselves aside, to help guide them to be those people that they can be to their fullest potential, because they didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask to be here. They're here, so we have a responsibility to them. And so I love this conversation. I love seeing, the passion from both of you, not just you, Maurice, but even you, Al, and I love to see the friendship too between you two. And we were talking at the beginning of the show about the fact that they had a show before, which I actually forgot. They had a show, so you guys can sense the chemistry, because of that fact. They had a TV show. How long ago was it? A couple years?
Yeah, it was. So my son is 2, so it was about 2 years ago. Yeah. So we were doing I want to say our first live show, and my wife was pregnant. It might have been the second live show. My wife was pregnant, and she went into labor the day of that, the live show. So as she's going into labor that night, anyone who doesn't have babies, it takes a while to get to that point. You got some time.
Yeah.
So as she's going into labor, I'm trying to, take care of her and check on her. I'm trying to find someone to cover the show and produce it for that day, and be able to, organize it. So I'm trying to do both of those things. But yeah, my son was born on the day that show went live. So that's a funny story.
Yeah, I kind of remember that a little bit. Yeah. But we want to make sure that people are able to get in touch with you. It's so many components of your life that gels with coffee and collaborations, not just the friendship between you all, but so many other components. But that just so happens to be a bonus. So this has been enjoyable for me to just watch you all, and 2 dads, number one, but also friends. So how do people get in contact with you, especially when that book comes out, to make sure they can get that book? If you could share your social media, website, all of those things.
Yeah, the best way to catch up with me is 21fatherhood.com. And the book will be listed there. Right now we're getting ready to do the pre-order and all of that stuff. And it looks like we're going to be able to release about mid-June, right before Father's Day. So I'm really excited about that. I have to wait just a little bit because my wife's birthday is the 5th. So right now, she's taking up all of the social media time. But after the 5th, I'm gonna start really pushing it. But they can definitely go to my website, and that's the best way to catch me. Anything you want to really gain from me is going to be on there. And then social media wise, just look up Maurice Webb. You'll find me one way or another.
Nice. So that was 21fatherhood.com. All right. Yeah. And we thank you for joining us today on the Coffee and Collaborations podcast. Al, did you want to say anything before we close out?
Just want to thank Maurice for coming. We appreciate the conversation. Definitely everyone go out and get his book when it comes out. Maurice is an amazing, speaker, amazing advocate for fathers. And we're going to be celebrating fatherhood and collaboration, all month long. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and the collaboration continues.
That's right. We love it. So thanks again, Maurice. You guys follow us on Instagram at Coffee and Collaborations, as well as Facebook. And then you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Coffee and Collaborations Media. If you have a father or someone that you would like to have on the show, see on the show, just know that we need to speak with them and highlight them. Then email us at info@coffeeandcollaborations.com. Everything leads to www.coffeeandcollaborations.com, and that'll loop you to everything else. So we really appreciate you for joining us every episode, but especially this month as we highlight fathers who are doing amazing things in the community, starting with Maurice Webb. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate everyone for joining us. And guys, you may not like coffee, so let's say that the coffee is an option, but that collaboration, that is absolutely essential to your win. You guys go out here and win. Remember, you are born to win. See you soon.
This has been a Coffee and Collaborations media production. Follow us at coffeeandcollaborations.com, on Twitter at Coffee in the letter N collab, on Instagram at Coffee and Collaborations, and on Facebook at Coffee and Collaborations. See you in the next episode.